I didn't sign the papers that day. That's the thing I keep coming back to. My son's pen was already out, expensive and silver, the kind that makes a soft click when you uncap it. He'd angled the clipboard toward me just so, like he'd practiced it. But something stopped my hand halfway to the paper. Maybe it was the way his jaw was set. Or maybe it was just 73 years of instinct finally speaking up. Hello. My name is Ruth Collier, and I live in Maplewood, Oregon. It's a small town, the kind where people still wave at you from their porches and the hardware store knows your paint preference. I've been here 46 years. My husband and I raised our son here. We built a life here. I'm telling you this story because I need to say it out loud. I need someone to know what almost happened. What I almost let happen. Let me back up. I was never the kind of woman people worried about. I ran the books for our hardware store for 30 years. Numbers don't lie to you if you know how to read them. When David, my husband, passed 8 years ago, people kept asking if I'd be okay managing things. I was 65 then. I sold the store within 6 months, paid off the mortgage, set up my accounts. The funeral director seemed surprised when I corrected an error on his invoice. I wasn't being difficult. The math was just wrong. My son Michael grew up watching me work. He'd sit in the store office doing homework while I reconciled receipts. He was a quiet boy, good with his hands like his father. He'd help customers find the right screws, explain the difference between wood types. People liked him. I liked him. Somewhere in his 20s, that quietness changed. Not dramatically. Just a shift in texture. He got smoother. Started wearing better shirts. Went into property management, then real estate investment. Did well for himself. Married a woman named Jennifer who smiled a lot but never seemed to finish her sentences. They divorced after 3 years. He started visiting more after the divorce. Every Sunday for dinner. Sometimes twice a week. I thought he was lonely. I thought he needed his mother. Last October, he showed up with pamphlets about retirement communities. Said he was worried about me being alone. The houses on my street were mostly young families now, he said. What if I fell? What if something happened? I told him I had my phone. I had Nancy next door. I had my doctor's number on the refrigerator. He smiled and folded the pamphlets back into his jacket. In December, he brought up the idea of getting my affairs in order. Said it was responsible. Said everyone his age was doing it for their parents. He'd found a lawyer, someone who specialized in elder planning. Very reputable. It would give me peace of mind. I said I already had a will. He said things had gotten more complicated since I'd written that. Tax laws. Estate laws. It would be better to have someone look at everything fresh. I didn't argue. It seemed reasonable. We made an appointment for February 14th. Valentine's Day. Michael said he'd drive me. His car was nicer than mine, he said. More comfortable. He picked me up at 9:30 in the morning. The car was new. A black Lincoln with leather seats that made a soft sigh when you sat down. The heat was already on. Classical music played low on the stereo. You didn't have to get a new car just to drive me around, I said. He laughed. It's not new, Mom. I've had it 3 months. 3 months. I tried to remember the last time I'd been in his car. The lawyer's office was in Portland, 40 minutes away. Michael talked the whole drive. About interest rates. About property values. about how the neighborhood was changing. I watched the trees go by and made small sounds of agreement. We pulled into a parking garage instead of the street parking I'd expected. Michael explained that the lawyer's office was in a new building, very modern, all glass and steel. He guided me to the elevator with his hand on my elbow. We went up to the 14th floor. The office was cold, clean, gray carpet, white walls, a receptionist who looked about 25. She smiled and said Mr. Patterson was ready for us. The meeting lasted 40 minutes. Mr. Patterson was younger than I'd expected. Maybe 50. He had very white teeth and used words like instruments and vehicles when he meant documents and accounts. Michael sat beside me, nodding at everything. There were papers. A lot of papers. Mr. Patterson explained each one quickly, pointing with his pen. Durable power of attorney. Living trust. Healthcare proxy. Beneficiary designations. He kept saying, standard, and typical, and for your protection. I tried to follow. I did. But the words kept sliding past each other. And Michael kept interjecting, saying things like, that's the one we discussed, Mom, and this just makes everything easier. At the end, Mr. Patterson stacked all the papers together and said, if you'd just sign here, here, and here, we'll get everything filed. I looked at the stack. Maybe 30 pages. Maybe more. I'd like to take these home to read, I said. Mr. Patterson's smile tightened just a fraction. Of course, but these are time-sensitive documents. The sooner we file, the sooner your affairs are protected. Protected from what? I asked. There was a small pause. Michael shifted in his chair. From uncertainty, Mr. Patterson said. From potential complications down the line. I looked at my son. He was looking at the papers. I'd still like to take them home, I said. Michael drove back in silence. Not angry silence. Careful silence. The kind that feels like someone measuring their words. As we pulled into my driveway, he said, Mom, you know the lawyer's just trying to help, right? You don't need to overthink this. I'm not overthinking, I said. I'm just thinking. He handed me the folder of papers. Don't worry about the legal language, he said. That's just how these things are written. The important part is that everything's taken care of. I took the folder. It was heavy. That night, I made tea and sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I used to do the store's bookkeeping. The same table where David and I used to plan our week. I opened the folder. The first document was titled, Durable Power of Attorney Effective Immediately. I read it slowly. It gave Michael full authority over my finances, my property, my medical decisions. Effective immediately. Not if I became incapacitated. Now, the second document was a living trust. It transferred my house into a trust managed by Michael. The third was a healthcare proxy. Michael would make all medical decisions on my behalf. I kept reading. Each document gave him more. Each page took something away from me. At the bottom of the stack was a document I hadn't seen in the lawyer's office. An amendment to my will. It was dated 6 months ago. My signature was at the bottom. I didn't remember signing it. I sat there until the tea went cold. The kitchen was dark except for the light over the table. Outside, I could hear the young couple across the street calling their kids in for the night. I thought about my husband. About how he used to check every receipt, every invoice, twice. Trust, but verify, he'd say. I thought about the hardware store. About the man who tried to overcharge us for a bulk order once. How I'd found the discrepancy and confronted him, and how he'd backed down because the numbers didn't lie. I thought about my son, sitting next to me in that cold office, saying, "That's the one we discussed, Mom." We hadn't discussed anything. I put the papers back in the folder. I didn't sign them. Instead, I placed the folder in my desk drawer, the one with the lock. The key went into my jewelry box, under my wedding ring. Then I went to bed. But I didn't sleep. Because somewhere between the leather seats of that Lincoln and the cold carpet of that office, something had shifted. Some balance had tilted. And I had the strange, creeping feeling that my life was being planned without me. That my name was being used to sign away my name. I was 73 years old. I had buried a husband, raised a child, run a business, survived 8 winters alone. I knew how to read a balance sheet. I knew how to spot a discrepancy. And those papers? Every single line was a discrepancy. The question was what to do about it. And whether my son would let me. The next morning, I called Nancy. Nancy Whitmore and I have known each other for 22 years. We met at a library book sale. We've traded recipes, watched each other's houses during vacations, complained about property taxes over coffee. She works at the county records office. Has for 30 years. I didn't tell her why I was calling. I just said I wanted to check something about my house deed. Could she pull the records? Just to make sure everything was current. Of course, she said. Give me till lunch. I'll bring copies by. She showed up at noon with a manila envelope and a concerned look. We sat at my kitchen table. She didn't open the envelope right away. "Ruth," she said, "when did you add Michael to the deed?" My hands went still on my coffee cup. "I didn't," I said. She opened the envelope, pulled out 3 pages. The property deed for my house. Filed in August of last year. It listed 2 owners, Ruth Ann Collier and Michael David Collier. Joint tenancy with right of survivorship. I stared at the words. They didn't make sense. Then they did. Then I wished they didn't. "You signed it," Nancy said gently. She pointed to the signature line. "That's your signature, isn't it?" It was. I recognized the way I loop the R. The way the tail of the C hooks back. "When?" I said. She showed me the date. August 17th. Last summer. I tried to remember. August. It had been hot. I'd been watering the garden every evening. Michael had visited. Multiple times. He'd been worried about scams, he said. Elderly people getting tricked into signing things. He wanted to help me organize my documents. Make sure everything was safe. I remembered him bringing papers. A stack of them. Property tax updates, he'd said. Homeowners insurance renewals. Just standard stuff that needed signatures to keep everything current. I'd signed them. At this table. While he stood over my shoulder and pointed to the lines. "Here, Mom. And here. And initial here." I thought I was updating insurance. I was giving away half my house. Nancy was watching my face. She's known me long enough to read it. "You didn't know," she said. "No." "Oh, Ruth." We sat in silence. I could hear the refrigerator humming. A car driving past outside. Normal sounds. But nothing felt normal. "What does it mean?" I asked. "Joint tenancy with right of survivorship?" Nancy folded her hands. She has 3 daughters. She's explained paperwork to confused people 1,000 times. It means you both own the house, she said. Equal shares. And when one owner dies, the other automatically gets everything. It bypasses the will. It's immediate. So if I died, Michael would own the house outright. No probate. No waiting. No other heirs could contest it. I thought about my niece, Lila. About how I'd always told her she'd have something when I was gone. About the will I'd made 12 years ago, carefully dividing everything. None of that mattered anymore. Can I undo it? I asked. Nancy hesitated. You'd need Michael to sign off. Both owners have to agree to remove a name from a joint tenancy. And if he doesn't? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. After Nancy left, I sat alone with the papers. I tried to think logically. Tried to approach it like a bookkeeping problem. Find the error. Trace it back. Fix it. But this wasn't an error. This was a plan. I pulled out the folder from the lawyer's office. Read through everything again. Power of attorney. Living trust. Healthcare proxy. And that amendment to my will with my signature that I didn't remember signing. I called James Keaton. James has been practicing law in Maplewood since 1982. He wrote my will. He handled the sale of the hardware store. He's 70 years old and still works 4 days a week because he says retirement makes people die faster. Ruth, he said when I arrived at his office. It's been a while. I need you to look at something. I put the papers on his desk. He read slowly, carefully, the way he's always read things. When he finished, he took off his reading glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Where did these come from? He asked. Michael took me to a lawyer in Portland. Said it was time to get things in order. Did you sign them? No. I brought them home to read. But James, there's more. I showed him the deed Nancy had copied. Showed him the date. Told him about last summer. About the papers I'd signed thinking they were insurance documents. James put the deed next to the lawyer's papers. Looked at them together. Ruth, he said, do you understand what you're looking at here? Tell me. He pointed to the power of attorney. This gives Michael complete control over your finances. Immediately. Not if you become incapacitated. Now. He can access your accounts, sell your property, make investments in your name. You'd have no recourse unless you could prove he was acting against your interests, which is nearly impossible to demonstrate. He moved to the living trust document. This transfers your house into a trust. Michael is listed as the trustee. You'd be the beneficiary, but he'd control everything. Sale, rental, refinancing. All his decisions. Then the healthcare proxy. Medical decisions. All of them. What treatments you receive. Where you live. Whether you're placed in a facility. And the deed? I asked. The deed means he already owns half. Add the trust, add the power of attorney, and Ruth, you'd effectively own nothing. You'd be living in a house he controls, with money he manages, under rules he sets. I'd known it was bad. But hearing it said out loud made it real. What about my will? I asked. The one you wrote. Does it still matter? James pulled a file from his cabinet. My will from 2013. He laid it next to the amendment I'd brought. This amendment supersedes several clauses in your original will, he said. It specifically alters the property distribution. Your house goes to Michael. Your accounts are distributed at his discretion as executor. Everything else is divided, but in practice, there wouldn't be much else left. I didn't sign this, I said. I don't remember signing it. James looked at the signature. Then at me. "It's your signature," he said carefully. "I know. But I don't remember it." "James, when would I have signed this? And where?" "You didn't witness it." He checked the witness signatures. Two names I didn't recognize. A notary stamp from a company in Portland. "Mobile notary," he said. "They come to you." I tried to think. Tried to remember anyone coming to my house with papers. Nothing. "Could it be forged?" I asked. "Ruth, that's a serious accusation." "I know what it is." "Could it be?" He studied the signature again. "It's possible. Signature matching isn't perfect. People sign their names differently depending on the day, the pen, the surface. If someone had access to other documents you'd signed, they could potentially practice until they got close enough to pass a notary's inspection. Most notaries don't check ID carefully if the person who hired them vouches for you. Michael would have hired them." James put the papers down. Leaned back in his chair. "Ruth, what do you want me to do?" That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want him to do? What could I do? Michael was my son. My only child. The boy I'd nursed through chickenpox and taught to ride a bike. The man who came to Sunday dinners and asked how I was sleeping. But he'd also stood in my kitchen and watched me sign away my house while telling me it was insurance paperwork. He'd taken me to a lawyer who pressured me to sign documents I couldn't even read properly. He'd had papers drafted that took everything I'd worked for and put it in his name. "I want to know what I still own," I said. "What's still mine?" James nodded. "I can find out. I'll need a few days. I'll check court records, financial filings, anything that might have been recorded without your knowledge. But Ruth, you need to understand something. If you start pulling on this thread, it's going to unravel. And Michael is going to know. I know. This could get ugly. It's already ugly. I just didn't see it yet." I drove home in the week afternoon light. Past the elementary school where Michael used to go. Past the park where David and I used to take him on Sundays. Past the grocery store where I still shopped every Thursday. Everything looked the same, but I felt like I was seeing my town through new glass. Everything tilted slightly. Everything off by just a few degrees. When I got home, I went to the closet in my bedroom. Pulled out the box I kept in the back. Old papers. Old photos. The deed to the store. Receipts from David's funeral. My marriage certificate. I found what I was looking for at the bottom. A letter David had written me 3 weeks before he died. He was in the hospital. He knew he wasn't coming home. The letter was short. Just a few lines. "Ruth, you were always stronger than you knew. Don't let anyone tell you different. Not even me. Especially not our boy. You raised him right, but men get ideas sometimes. Stand up. I know you can." I'd read it once at his funeral and then put it away because it hurt too much. Now I read it again. Stand up. I put the letter back in the box. But I didn't put the box away. I left it on my bed. Then I went to the kitchen and made dinner. Roasted chicken. Mashed potatoes. Green beans. The same meal I'd made 1,000 times. My phone rang at 6:30. Michael's name on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before I answered. "Hi, Mom. Just checking in. You feeling okay?" "I'm fine. Did you get a chance to look at those papers?" I looked at the folder on my desk. At the deed copy on my counter. "I did," I said. "And? I have some questions." A pause. Very slight. "Sure. What kind of questions?" "Legal ones." I think I need to talk to my own lawyer. Another pause. Longer this time. Mom, Mr. Patterson is a lawyer. He's your lawyer. I need mine. That's not how this works. He's representing your interests. Is he? Silence on the line. I could picture Michael in his apartment. Could picture his face doing that thing it does when he's calculating. Mom, I don't understand why you're being difficult about this. This is all standard. This is what responsible families do. I'm not being difficult, I said. I'm being careful. You don't need to be careful with me. I'm your son. I know who you are. I heard him breathe out. Frustrated, trying not to show it. Okay, he said. Talk to James if you want. But he's going to tell you the same thing. This is all for your protection. That's what I'm told. Mom, I have to go. Dinner's getting cold. I hung up before he could say anything else. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Anger. Pure, clean, focused anger. I'd spent 8 years alone. 8 years managing my house, my bills, my health, my life. I'd done it quietly, efficiently, without asking anyone for help unless I absolutely needed it. I'd been competent, careful, responsible, and somehow, in my son's eyes, that had made me vulnerable. I sat down at the table, ate my dinner slowly, tasted nothing. When I finished, I washed my plate, dried it, put it away. Then I went back to my desk and pulled out a notebook. The kind I used to use for bookkeeping. Lined pages, neat columns. At the top of the first page, I wrote what I signed, what I didn't, and I started making a list. Because David was right. I was stronger than I knew. And I wasn't done standing up yet. I started with the bank. First National has been on Main Street for 90 years. I've had my account there since 1979. The same account David and I opened when we bought the house. I walked in Tuesday morning at 9:15. Asked to speak with someone about my account access. They put me in a small office with a woman named Kendra. Maybe 30. Efficient smile. She pulled up my account on her computer. How can I help you today, Mrs. Collier? I need to remove someone from my account access. Okay. Is this a joint account holder? No. He has authorization to access and manage. I want that removed. She typed something. Scrolled. Her expression changed slightly. I see we have Michael Collier listed here with full account authority. Has been since last April. Is there a problem? Last April. 10 months ago. No problem, I said. I just don't need that authorization anymore. I'll need you to fill out a form. And we'll need to verify your identity. She made it sound routine. Like people came in every day to take their children's names off their bank accounts. Maybe they did. I filled out the form. Showed my driver's license. Answered security questions. She printed something and had me sign. This will take effect immediately, she said. Mr. Collier will no longer be able to access your account or view your statements. What about automatic payments? Bills he might have set up? She checked again. I don't see any automatic payments linked to his authorization. Just viewing and transfer privileges. Transfer privileges. He could have moved my money anywhere. Did he? I asked. Transfer anything? Kendra looked uncomfortable. I can print your transaction history. Would you like the last year? Yes. She printed 6 pages. I took them home and spread them on my kitchen table. Most of it was normal. Grocery store. Utilities. property tax, my small withdrawals for cash. But there were other things. 3 transfers to an account I didn't recognize. $500 each. October, November, December. I called the bank back. Asked about the account number. That's a business account, Kendra said. Collier Property Management LLC. Michael's company. $1,500. Taken from my account over 3 months. Not a huge amount. Just enough that I might not notice. Just enough to test whether I was paying attention. I called James. I need to know what other accounts I have, I said. And who has access to them. He came to my house that afternoon with a briefcase full of papers. We sat at my table for 2 hours. He'd pulled records from every institution he could find associated with my name. The savings account at First National. Still just mine. The small investment account from when I sold the store. Michael's name added last June. My credit card. Michael listed as an authorized user since March. The insurance policy on my life. Beneficiary changed from estate of Ruth Collier to Michael David Collier in September. Ruth, James said, this is systematic. This isn't carelessness. This is a strategy. I already knew that. But hearing someone else say it made it more real. What do? We remove him from everything. Today. Right now. Every account, every policy, every piece of paper with his name on it. Then we file new documents. Revoke that power of attorney he tried to get you to sign. Create a new will. Set up a proper trust with you in control. Can we do that? Legally? You haven't signed anything yet. You're still competent. I'll witness that in writing if I have to. Yes, we can do this. We started making calls. The investment firm. Remove Michael Collier from account access. The credit card company. Remove authorized user. The insurance company. Change beneficiary back to estate. Each call took 15 to 20 minutes. Security questions. Verification procedures. Explanations I didn't want to give. By 5 o'clock, it was done. 14 different institutions. Michael's name removed from all of them. What about the house? I asked. James shook his head. The deed is trickier. We'll need to negotiate with Michael or file a partition action, which could take months. But at least he can't sell it without your signature. Can he force me out? Not unless he gets a court order. Which he'd have to show cause for. And you're living here independently. You pay your bills. You're not a danger to yourself or others. No judge would sign that order. I thought about the healthcare proxy in those papers from Portland. About assisted living facilities. About the legal language that would let Michael make those decisions. Unless he gets me declared incompetent, I said. James looked at me. His expression was careful. Is there any reason anyone could claim you're incompetent? I'm 73. That's not a reason. Do you have any diagnosis? Dementia? Alzheimer's? Any cognitive issues? No. Do you manage your own medication? Your own appointments? Yes. Pay your own bills? Yes. Then no one can declare you incompetent. Not without a lot of evidence. And Ruth, you're as sharp as you've ever been. I appreciated him saying that. But I also knew how these things worked. I'd seen it happen to Margaret Hensley down the street. Her son got a doctor to say she was confused. Got a judge to agree. She was in a nursing home within 6 weeks. Dead within 8 months. I need to see what else is out there, I said. What else I've signed. What else exists with my name on it. Where would you start? I thought about it. About papers. About where people keep important papers. The safety deposit box, I said. I'd forgotten I had one. Not completely forgotten. But it had been years since I'd opened it. Maybe 5 years. Maybe longer. It was one of those things you get when you think you need it and then never use. David had wanted it. Said we should keep the original deed there. The marriage certificate. Important things. After he died, I'd put his death certificate in there. Some old jewelry. Then I'd stopped going. Wednesday morning, I went back to First National. Asked to access my box. The vault was in the basement. Cold concrete. Rows of metal boxes. The attendant found mine. Box 247. She used her key and handed me mine. I carried the box to a small private room. Sat down at the table. Opened the lid. The deed was on top. The original from 1978. Just David's name and mine. Under that, the marriage certificate. His death certificate. My birth certificate. Some jewelry. My mother's wedding ring. David's watch. And at the bottom, a manila envelope. The envelope had my name on it. Written in handwriting that wasn't mine. Michael's handwriting. I recognized the way he makes his capital C. The way his letters slant left. The envelope was sealed. There was a date on it. October 14th. 4 months ago. I didn't remember putting this here. Didn't remember Michael giving me anything to put here. But it was in my box. With my name on it. In my son's handwriting. I opened it. Inside were 3 documents. The first was a will. Dated October 14th. It said, Last Will and Testament of Ruth Ann Collier, at the top. I read it slowly. It left everything to Michael. The house. The accounts. The jewelry. Everything. No mention of Lila. No mention of my church. No mention of anyone but my son. At the bottom was a signature. Mine. I did not sign this. I know my signature. I know the way my hand moves when I write my name. This was close. Very close. But the loop on the R was too round. The tail on the C didn't hook back the way mine does. Someone had practiced my signature. Had practiced it until it was good enough. Then they'd signed my name to a will that left them everything. The second document was an amendment to the deed. It added Michael as sole owner upon my death. Immediate transfer. No probate. Same signature. Same almost but not quite R. The third document was a notarized statement. It said I was of sound mind and body when I signed these documents. It was dated October 14th. The notary stamp was real. The signature was real. But I wasn't there. I didn't sign anything on October 14th. I was home that day. I remembered because it was raining and I'd stayed in and watched old movies. I sat in that small cold room with my hands on the papers and I understood something. This wasn't just about control. This wasn't just about managing my money or protecting me from myself or making sure things were organized. This was about erasing me. Taking my name, my signature, my decisions, my voice, and replacing all of it with documents that said whatever he wanted them to say. I thought about Margaret Hensley. About how her son had visited so often in those last months. About how helpful he'd been. About how concerned. I thought about all the times Michael had come to my house. All the times he'd asked me to sign things. All the times he'd said, "Don't worry about the details, Mom. I've got it handled." He'd been practicing. Testing what I'd sign without reading. What I'd accept without questioning. How much he could take before I noticed. And when he'd decided I'd sign anything, he'd just started signing for me. I put the papers back in the envelope. Put the envelope in my purse. Closed the safety deposit box. The attendant asked if I wanted to access anything else. No, I said. I think I found what I needed. I drove to James's office. Walked in without an appointment. His secretary said he was with a client, but I said I'd wait. When he came out, he took one look at my face and brought me into his office. I put the envelope on his desk. He read the documents in silence. When he finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Ruth," he said, "these are forgeries. I know. This is fraud. This is a crime. I know that too. You need to report this. To the police. To the Bar Association. This notary needs to lose their license." I nodded. But I wasn't thinking about licenses or reports. I was thinking about my son. About how much planning this had taken. About how long he'd been working toward this. About how he'd looked at me, his mother, and seen nothing but money. Nothing but property. Nothing but an obstacle to remove. "What do you want to do?" James asked. I looked at the papers. At the signature that wasn't mine. At the will that erased everyone I loved except the person trying to erase me. "I want to revoke everything," I said. "Every document with his name on it. Every authorization. Every delegation. I want new papers drawn up that make it very clear who owns my life. And then? And then I want to have a conversation with my son." James nodded slowly. "Ruth, when he finds out what you've done, he's going to fight back. He's put too much effort into this to just walk away. You need to be prepared for that." "I'm prepared. Are you?" He leaned forward. "Because this could get worse before it gets better. He could contest your competency. He could file for conservatorship. He could claim you're being manipulated by me or Nancy or anyone he can think of. He's going to do everything he can to convince people you can't make your own decisions. Then we document that I can." How? I thought about it. About what would prove I was still myself. Still sharp. Still capable. "A cognitive assessment," I said. "From a doctor. Something official. Something he can't argue with." "That's smart. I'm not incompetent, James. I'm angry. There's a difference." He smiled. "Just slightly." "Yes, there is." We spent the next 3 hours drafting new documents. A new will. A trust with me as the sole trustee. A healthcare directive that specifically excluded Michael from any decision-making. A revocation of any and all powers of attorney, past, present, or future. And at the bottom of each document, I signed my name. The real signature. The one with the R that loops just right and the C that hooks back. The one that belonged to me. When I left James's office, it was getting dark. I sat in my car for a few minutes before starting the engine. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Haven't heard from you in a few days. Everything okay?" I looked at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Everything's fine. We should talk soon." I didn't wait for a response. I put the phone in my purse and drove home. The house was dark when I got there. I turned on the lights, one room at a time. This was my house. My life. My name. And I was taking it all back. But first, I needed to be ready for what came next. Because Michael wasn't going to let this go quietly. And neither was I. Michael showed up on Sunday. I didn't invite him. But he came anyway. Old habit, I suppose. Sunday dinner at Mom's. I saw his Lincoln pull into the driveway at 4:30. Watched him sit in the car for a minute before getting out. He had a bag from the bakery. The good one on Elm Street. I met him at the door. "Hey, Mom." He held up the bag. "Got those lemon scones you like. I didn't know you were coming. I texted. You didn't answer." He smiled. The easy smile. The one that used to work. Thought I'd just swing by. "Make sure you're eating." I opened the door wider. Let him in. He went straight to the kitchen. Put the scones on the counter. Looked around like he was checking inventory. "Coffee?" I asked. "Sure." I made coffee. We sat at the table. The same table where I'd signed away my house thinking it was insurance paperwork. Where I'd made my list of what I'd signed and what I hadn't. Michael ate a scone. Talked about work. About a property he was closing on. About how the market was crazy right now. I drank my coffee. Waited. He finished the scone. Brushed crumbs off his hands. "So," he said, "did you get a chance to talk to James?" I did. "And? What did he say?" "He said I should read everything before I sign it." Michael's smile tightened. Just slightly. "That's good advice. But Mom, those papers from Mr. Patterson? They're standard. James will tell you the same thing." He didn't. "What do you mean?" He said they're not standard. He said they give you complete control over everything I own. Silence. Michael picked up his coffee cup. Put it back down. "That's not control," he said. "That's protection." "For who?" "For you. Mom, you're 73. Things happen. You could fall. You could get sick. Someone could take advantage of you. These documents make sure I can step in if that happens. They don't say if. They say now. That's just legal language. Is it?" He looked at me. Really looked at me. Like he was calculating something. "What did James tell you?" "The truth." "Which is?" I stood up. Went to the counter. Picked up the folder I'd left there. Brought it back to the table. "Let me show you," I said. I opened the folder. Started pulling out papers. The deed Nancy had copied. The bank statements showing transfers to his company. The investment account records. The insurance policy changes. I laid them out one by one. Like I used to lay out receipts when we did the store's books. Evidence in neat rows. Michael's face went very still. "You've been busy," he said. "So have you. April, June, August, October. Every few months, something new. Something with my name on it and your name next to it. I was helping you organize. You were taking, piece by piece, account by account. That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" He stood up, walked to the window, stood with his back to me. "You don't understand how this works," he said. "You don't understand financial planning. Estate management. I was trying to make sure everything was protected. That's all." "Protected from what?" "From mistakes. From scammers. From yourself." "Myself." He turned around. "Mom, you're getting older. That's just a fact. People at your age, they get confused. They forget things. They make bad decisions. Like signing papers without reading them?" "Yes. Exactly. That's why I needed to." "That's why you needed to what? Trick me? Forge my signature?" His expression changed. The smooth mask cracked just a little. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out the envelope. The one from the safety deposit box. Put it on the table. "October 14th, I said. "You put this in my box. A will with my signature. Except I didn't sign it. I wasn't even there." Michael stared at the envelope. Said nothing. I was home that day, I said. It was raining. I watched 3 old movies. Ate leftover soup. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't sign anything. But somehow there's a notarized document with my name on it leaving you everything. Mom, don't call me that and lie to my face. He sat back down, slowly, put his hands on the table. Okay, he said. Okay, yes. I had someone notarize documents without you present. But Mom, it was for your own good. You would have signed them anyway. I was just streamlining the process. Streamlining. Making it easier. Less confusing for you. By forging my signature. By handling things you didn't need to worry about. I looked at my son. At his face. Trying to find the boy I'd raised. The one who used to help customers find the right screws. The one who'd cried at his father's funeral. He wasn't there. Or maybe he'd never been there. Maybe I'd just wanted to see him. I removed your name, I said. From everything. The bank. The investment account. The credit cards. The insurance. All of it. Michael went very still. You can't do that. I already did. Mom, those accounts, I need access to those. To help you. To make sure. You don't need access to anything. They're my accounts. My money. My life. His jaw tightened. This is James, isn't it? He's putting ideas in your head. Turning you against me. James showed me what you did. That's not ideas. That's facts. He's manipulating you. Can't you see that? He wants your money for himself. He's probably charging you a fortune for all this legal work. Stop. Mom, listen to me. No, you listen. I know what you did. I know about the deed. The transfers. The forged will. I know about the facility tours you scheduled. Michael's face went white. How do you? Nancy told me. Her sister works at Riverside Manor. Said you toured the place twice. Asked about memory care units. Pricing. Availability. That was just research. Just in case. In case what? In case you needed somewhere to put me after you took everything? That's not Mom, you're twisting this. Am I? Tell me, Michael. What was the plan? Get me declared incompetent? Get conservatorship? Put me in a home and sell my house? Was that it? He said nothing, but his face said everything. I felt something break inside me. Something I'd been holding together since I saw those papers in the Lincoln. Since I saw my house deed with his name on it. My son. My only child. The person I'd given everything to. He'd looked at me and seen a paycheck. A property portfolio. An obstacle. I want you to leave, I said. Mom, we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. I want you out of my house. This is my house too. My name is on the deed. Half the deed. And you'll never get the other half. I've filed paperwork with James. If anything happens to me, if I suddenly become incompetent or have an accident or end up in a facility, everything goes to Lila. Not you. My niece. The one who visits because she wants to, not because she's waiting for me to die. Michael stood up. Fast. His chair scraped against the floor. You can't do that. I already did. I'm your son. Then act like it. I've been trying to help you. You've been trying to rob me. There's a difference. His face changed. The mask was completely gone now. What was underneath was cold. Calculating. You're making a mistake, he said. The only mistake I made was trusting you. I could file for conservatorship. I have documentation. The papers you signed. The confusion. I could get a doctor to evaluate you. Do it. James has already arranged for a cognitive assessment. From 3 different doctors, all saying the same thing. I'm competent, sharp, capable. Try to claim otherwise and I'll produce those reports. And then I'll produce the forged will. The falsified deed amendment. And I'll ask the police to investigate. Michael stared at me. You wouldn't. Try me. I'm your son. You were my son. Now you're just someone who tried to steal from me. He grabbed his jacket from the chair. His hands were shaking. Anger or fear, I couldn't tell. You'll regret this, he said. When you're alone. When you need help. When something happens and there's no one to call. You'll regret pushing me away. Maybe, I said, but I'll still have my name. My house. My life. That's more than I'd have if I let you finish what you started. He walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. I loved you, he said. No, you loved what I could give you. That's not the same thing. He left. Slammed the door. I heard the Lincoln start. Heard him drive away too fast down my quiet street. I sat at the table. Looked at the papers spread out in front of me. Evidence. Documentation. Proof. I should have felt victorious. Relieved. Safe. Instead, I felt empty. I'd lost my son today. Not to death. To greed. To whatever had turned him from the boy I knew into the man who forged my signature. Maybe I'd lost him years ago. Maybe I'd just been pretending he was still there. The scones sat on the counter. Still in the bag. I threw them away. Then I went to the kitchen window. Looked out at the garden David and I had planted 40 years ago. The roses that came back every spring. The oak tree we'd put in when Michael was born. Everything still there. Everything still standing. Just like me. My phone rang. James. How did it go? He asked. It's done. And? He left. Is he going to fight back? I thought about Michael's face. The cold calculation. The threats. Yes, I said. He's going to fight. Then we'll be ready. I hung up. Made fresh coffee. Sat back down at the table. There was a photo on the counter. Old. Faded. Michael at 5 years old. Holding a hammer in the store. Grinning. David's hand on his shoulder. I picked it up. Looked at it for a long time. Then I put it in a drawer. Face down. I couldn't keep looking at who he used to be. Not when who he'd become was trying to erase me. The house was quiet. So quiet. But I wasn't afraid of the silence anymore. I was afraid of what filled it before. The lies. The manipulation. The slow theft of my own life. Now the silence was mine. The house was mine. My name was mine. And I was going to fight like hell to keep it that way. Even if it meant fighting my own son. Especially if it meant that. Because the boy in the photo was gone. And the man who'd stood in my kitchen and threatened me was a stranger. A dangerous stranger. And I was done pretending otherwise. 3 months passed. That's how long it took for the house to feel like mine again. Not legally. Legally, it had always been mine. But there's a difference between ownership on paper and ownership in your bones. Between living in a space and inhabiting it. For 3 months, every time the doorbell rang, my heart jumped. Every time a car slowed in front of my house, I looked up. Every time the phone rang from an unknown number, I hesitated. Waiting for Michael to come back. Waiting for the fight James said was coming. It never came. James told me later that Michael had consulted 3 different lawyers about conservatorship. All 3 had told him the same thing. Without medical evidence of incompetency, without witnesses to confusion or self-neglect. Without any documentation beyond his own word, no judge would grant it. The cognitive assessments I'd done helped. 3 doctors. 3 reports. All saying the same thing. Ruth Collier is alert, oriented, competent, and fully capable of managing her own affairs. One doctor had written a note at the bottom. Patient demonstrates better executive function than many people half her age. Sharp wit. Clear memory. Sound judgment. I kept that report in my desk drawer. Just in case. But as the weeks passed, I stopped checking the drawer. Stopped jumping at car sounds. Stopped looking over my shoulder. Michael was gone. Not dead. Not moved away. Just absent. The way you're absent from someone's life when the cost of being present is too high. I heard through Nancy that he'd moved to Seattle. New job. New city. New start. I didn't ask for details. Didn't want them. The anger I'd felt that last Sunday faded slowly. Not into forgiveness. I'm not sure I'll ever forgive what he tried to do. But into something quieter. Something more like grief. I grieved the son I'd thought I had. The boy in the photograph. The version of Michael I'd carried in my head all these years. That person had never existed. Or maybe he had, once, and I'd just missed the moment he stopped being that person. Either way, I had to let him go. The house changed in small ways. I rearranged the living room. Moved the couch away from the window. Put my reading chair where I could see the garden. Hung new curtains. Light ones. The kind that let the morning sun through. I started cooking smaller meals. Just enough for one. I'd spent years making too much, freezing leftovers, pretending I might have guests. Now I made exactly what I wanted. Ate it slowly. Didn't apologize for the quiet. Lila started visiting more. My niece's daughter. But she'd always called me Aunt Ruth. She came by on Tuesdays. Brought tea or flowers or nothing at all. We'd sit in the kitchen and talk. About her work. About her boyfriend. About movies and books and the small frustrations of being 28. She never asked about Michael. Never brought up the papers or the lawyers or any of it. One Tuesday, she brought a folder of her own. "I've been thinking," she said. "About advance directives. Healthcare stuff. I don't have any of that set up. Can you help me understand it?" So we sat at my table and I explained what I'd learned. The difference between a healthcare proxy and a living will. Why it matters who you choose. How to make sure your wishes are clear. She took notes in a small notebook. Asked good questions. When we finished, she looked at me. "Did you ever think you'd have to protect yourself from family?" "No," I said. "I thought family meant safety." "What does it mean now?" I thought about it. About James and Nancy and Lila. About the people who'd helped me without asking for anything. About the ones who'd shown up without an agenda. "I think it means something different now," I said. "I think family is who stays when there's nothing to gain. Who helps because it matters, not because it benefits them." Lila nodded. Closed her notebook. "Then you've got more family than you think." After she left, I found an envelope on the counter. Inside was a card. Hand-drawn. A little house with flowers around it. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for teaching me to read the fine print. Love, L." I put it on my refrigerator. Next to the cognitive assessment appointment card I'd never thrown away. Evidence. Not of what was taken. But of what remained. I started going back to church. I'd stopped after David died. Not because I was angry at God. Just because it hurt too much to sit in the pew where we'd sat together. To hear the hymns he'd loved. To see couples holding hands during prayers. But one Sunday in April, I got dressed. Drove to the small Presbyterian church on Oak Street. Walked in. People remembered me. They smiled. Welcomed me back. Didn't ask where I'd been. I sat in a different pew. Near the back. Where I could leave early if I needed to. But I didn't need to. The sermon was about forgiveness. About how it's not about excusing harm. It's about releasing the grip that harm has on you. I thought about Michael. About the anger I'd felt. About how it had lived in my chest for months. How it had made everything heavier. I didn't forgive him that day. Maybe I never would. But I could let go of expecting him to be someone he wasn't. I could stop carrying the weight of his choices. I could choose what I carried. And what I set down. After church, I went to the grocery store. Bought ingredients for soup. Real soup. The kind that takes hours. The kind David used to make on Sundays. I spent the afternoon chopping vegetables. Simmering stock. Watching steam rise from the pot. The house smelled like home again. Like life. Like something other than fear. I ate the soup slowly. Watched the light change in the garden. Felt the weight of the day settle into something softer. This was survival. Not the dramatic kind. Not the courtroom battles or the document wars or the confrontations. Just this. Soup in my kitchen. Light through my window. My name on my deed. The small, ordinary acts of remaining yourself. I started writing again. Not letters. Not documents. Just thoughts. In a small notebook I kept by my reading chair. Things I wanted to remember. Things I'd learned. Things I wanted to say to someone, someday, if they ever needed to hear them. I wrote, you can spend your whole life being what other people need and forget to be what you are. I wrote, the people who love you don't need to control you. Control isn't love. It's fear dressed up in concern. I wrote, sometimes protecting yourself means disappointing people. Let them be disappointed. I wrote, age doesn't make you less of a person. It makes you more yourself. Don't let anyone tell you different. Small truths. The kind you learn when you almost lose everything. Summer came. I planted tomatoes. Weeded the flower beds. Sat on the porch in the evenings and watched fireflies. Nancy came over sometimes. Brought wine. We'd sit and talk about nothing important. Books. Weather. Town gossip. One night she said, you seem different. Different how? Lighter. Like you're not carrying something anymore. I'm not, I said. I put it down. She nodded. Understood without me explaining. That's the thing about real friends. They don't need the whole story. They just need to know you're okay. I am okay. More than okay. I'm 73 years old. I live alone in a small house in Oregon. I manage my own money. Make my own decisions. Sign my own papers. Some days are hard. Some days I'm tired. Some days I wonder what would have happened if I'd signed those papers in the Lincoln. If I'd just trusted Michael. If I'd been easier to manage. But then I look around my house. At the furniture I arranged. The curtains I chose. The life I'm living on my own terms. And I know I made the right choice. Not the easy choice. The right one. There's a difference. I don't know what happens next. If Michael will come back. If he'll try again. If there will be more battles to fight. But I know I'll be ready. Because I know what I'm capable of now. I know what I'm worth. I know that being loved doesn't mean being erased. And I know that survival isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just sitting in your kitchen, drinking coffee you made yourself, in a house with your name on it, living a life you chose. That's victory. The quiet kind. The kind that lasts. I still have David's letter. The one that said, "Stand up." I keep it in my desk now. Not hidden away. Just there, where I can see it if I need to remember. But I don't need it as much anymore. Because I know how to stand on my own. I learned it from him. From James. From Nancy. From Lila. But mostly, I learned it from myself. From the part of me that looked at those papers and said no. From the part that made lists and asked questions and refused to be erased. That part was always there. I just had to remember it existed. If you're listening to this story, if you're hearing it and recognizing something familiar, I want you to know that part exists in you too. The part that knows. The part that questions. The part that stands up when standing up is hard. Listen to it. Trust it. Let it protect you. Because the people who truly love you won't ask you to sign your life away. They won't need control to feel secure. They won't make you smaller to make themselves bigger. And if someone does, stand up. Make your lists. Read the fine print. Ask the questions. Your name is yours. Your life is yours. Don't let anyone tell you different. Not even your son. Especially not your son. I'm still here. In my house. In my life. Under my name. And I'm not going anywhere. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it wasn't easy to hear. It wasn't easy to live. But I hope it helps someone out there. Someone who's wondering if they're seeing things clearly. Someone who's being told they're confused when they're actually just paying attention. You're not confused. You're not difficult. You're not being ungrateful. You're being careful. And that's exactly what you should be. If this story meant something to you, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to Grandmama Radio. Hit that like button. Turn on notifications. Not for me, but for the next person who needs to hear that they're not alone. That they're not wrong. That standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. And we all deserve to survive. Take care of yourselves. Read the fine print. And remember your signature belongs to you. Always.